Hello, I'm John McLaughlin Williams, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the inaugural broadcast of our new podcast, Conductors in Bars. That's right. Welcome to Conductors in Bars. And what is that? Well, it's just what it says it is. It's Conductors in Bars. And what do conductors do in bars? Well, we talk a lot. We do. And we have some drinks, but mostly we talk a lot. But as you can see, really quite from the background, we're not really in a bar right now. And it looks like I'm alone. I'm actually not alone, but as you're going to see pretty soon, you're going to have lots of company. But once this whole pandemic thing is over, we'll all get back to normal, and we will be having conductors in bars, presumably in bars or other places where we actually will be in the same room. But in the meantime, we'll be doing this thing virtually. And it's still going to be a lot of fun, I promise you that. So, Conductors in Bars, what is it? Well, let me tell you how this got started. It got started a long time ago when a conductor sat down with another conductor, and he started kvetching about this, that, or the other, and he had some drinks. And that is a tradition that's continued after concerts since time immemorial, since there have been concerts. Conductors get together and they talk about music, they talk about interpretation, they talk about players, they talk about all sorts of stuff. But what's different about it is that it's not a controlled environment. The way it is when you see conductors in their interviews on the BBC or in Gramophone and that kind of thing, where conductors are always putting their best foot forward. It's not that we intend to put our worst foot forward here, but we intend to have conversations which are a little less filtered, shall we say. So Conductors in Bars, talking about conducting things, about music, about pretty much anything that comes across our mind that might be interesting to us. No topic is off limits. So Conductors in Bars is going to be something that will be wide-ranging, but always focused on music with a central focus within that on conducting. Conductors in Bars actually, as a concept for us, got started in 2016 when I had a concert with the terrific conductor, Alexander Walker. We were doing music of Ignaz Waghalter, and we got together in a bar. After rehearsal, we had a fantastic conversation, wide-ranging. We learned so much about each other, and we learned about music from each other. Alexander is a wonderful conductor who's made wonderful recordings of Havergal Bryan and many other composers, and he has a lot to say, and he knows a lot. That conversation was so memorable to us that we thought it might make a great concept. So we went to Momentum Artist, our manager, and said, "What do you think about this?" And Lena Kondros, the president of Momentum Artist, says that she thought it was a great idea. So Conductors in Bars has been born out of that, and our aim is to recreate the informal atmosphere of just two friends talking about the thing they love the most, really, which is music. We're going to have Alexander Walker on a very special episode of Conductors in Bars coming up pretty soon. So we hope you look forward to that. I certainly do. There's a lot to explore with him. In the meantime, we're going to get this episode of Conductors in Bars off the ground. We do have a special guest today here, and his name is Chiya Amos. He is a young conductor from Singapore. And he's made quite a wave over in Asia and in Europe. He's been conducting opera and ballet all over the place, and he's been mentored by one of the greatest names in conducting today, Riccardo Muti. We'll hear a little more about that later, of course, but before we bring Chiya on, I want to let's have a little sample of his music making. Can we have that video, please? Wow, terrific video. Let's welcome our guest, Chiya Amos. Welcome, Amos.
Hi. Hi, hi,
Hey,
hi. Hey.
how's it going?
Great. How is it over there?
It's not too bad at all. Though I know that we are in completely different time zones. I'm in
Yeah.
America, of course, and as I understand, you right now you're in Tokyo.
Yep, it's 10 in the morning in Tokyo right now.
Right. Well, listen. Welcome to Conductors in Bars, and well, what can we say except that we know that somewhere in the world right now there's a conductor having a drink somewhere.
Yep.
So welcome. Indeed, indeed. Wow. Tell me. Before we get to what you're doing in Tokyo, I want to say that what brought you to my attention and to many of us made our first acquaintance through a very interesting post that was on Norman Lebrecht's blog in February. It's so interesting that we as conductors can labor in obscurity. We can do all sorts of things, and no one hears a word about it. But one little thing, which seems to us to be a minor moment in our lives, can all of a sudden take on a life of its own. In your case, uh, uh, in your case, the pandemic. Well, let's let you tell the story.
Yep. I've been conducting a lot in Russia mainly. I sometimes travel around the Scandinavian, Baltic states, Eastern Europe, occasionally to Western Europe. And after the pandemic hit, I had my last concert in, I guess, January 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything just got shut down. I tried to apply to other jobs, I tried to do other things, but it's really difficult. Unemployment in Russia was really high, and I thought, okay, why not just head back home to Singapore because Singapore is a very metropolitan city. It's a very modern city, and being Singaporean, I assumed that we would be supporting some local talent, but unfortunately, I was really very wrong about that. So I I
It's
came
funny.
back.
We
Yeah,
have a saying, a prophet unsung in his own land. I think many of us have had a similar problem. Yeah, you have to
yeah,
go elsewhere to be recognized.
yeah, and that's why I was in Russia for past 8 years or so. Yep.
Wow,
So
long time.
I went back to Singapore. I still couldn't find a suitable, flexible job because as conductors, as musicians, we do have other priorities. Just in case if concerts resume, we should be able to fly again. And I also teach on the fly. I have some private students, so I couldn't take an office job. I was preferring to have some sort of a little more flexibility, but I couldn't get any of these jobs. And I just hit rock bottom in January 2021. I was left with like, I don't know, $12 in my bank account, my wife and I.
Well, every conductor has
And
been there.
yeah, and we were homeless. I mean, a lot of you guys outside might be thinking, how is it possible? This guy have been traveling, he has been doing concerts. I have seen, comments like that. And I guess we all need to know that as a young conductor, we are not getting salaries like the big conductors, like I don't know,
Right.
a few hundred thousands per concert. So,
Hmm.
and being in the Baltic states and in Russia, the standard of living is much lower, so we don't command the same salaries
The
as,
fees are much lower per concert.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
it's definitely much lower. And I had to pay for rent, I had student loans. Well, not really that much. I did clear my debt a long time ago, but we do have loans. I have mortgage, the very typical, the very normal
Just
thing.
grown up stuff,
Yeah,
of course.
yeah,
Yeah.
grown up stuff. So, when you hit 25, guys, if we have some young listeners out there, there are many grown up stuff that we'll one day talk about, like mortgages and stuff. It's very boring things. But yeah, so it was really bad. My wife lost her job too because of COVID, and we
So
hit
you
rock
really were at
bottom.
rock bottom. You had nothing, and so
Yeah,
you
yeah. I,
but
I
you
I
took
even
drastic
so
action.
yeah, I even sold my piano. I have a beautiful German E-Bach piano. I had to
Wow.
sell it because we needed some money. And but well, just a side note, the person who bought it, he was really nice about it, and he said I could just buy it back anytime. So I hit rock bottom, and at that time the Singapore Symphony Orchestra, many Asian orchestras, they don't have that nationalistic intent to support their own talents. They all prefer, the foreign
Foreign conductors.
talents. Yeah, because
Sounds like America.
they all think that. I mean, I'm not saying the foreign conductors are bad, but they
No, no.
have, they all have to sell tickets. I am not blaming anyone because, it's so different these days. We have to sell tickets, we have to get audiences. So having a sort of bigger name, exotic conductor, that
Sure.
that helps. So unfortunately, I didn't get any positions with them, and of course, the only thing left was to get a job which is flexible and could pay quite okay, which is a delivery job because I get paid according to how much I work. So if I work harder, I get a little bit more, and if I do not work hard, I'll get less. There are incentives, and it's very flexible. I mean, I could just do it for a few hours a day
So
on the days when
you
I have
did
some.
food delivery, is that right?
Yeah, yeah. I became sort of food courier. I sent food around Singapore. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it was quite taxing. But
And how did you get around? What did you use to travel with?
so for the first week or so, I couldn't afford a bicycle because and this is one thing where everyone kept making fun of. Again, they all say that how is it possible that you can't even afford a bicycle? But like guys, when you hit rock bottom and you have to actually pay for the equipment when you become a delivery rider, you have to pay for bag and the shirts and whatever.
Oh,
So
wow.
on top of that, if I bought a bicycle, I would be spending like 1 week of my food on like I think 1 or 2 weeks of my fees, and that's quite something. Like
That's a lot, yeah.
I have to make up for the equipment fee, which is substantial actually. People think it's cheap to get that bag. It costs like $80 to get that bag. It's a rip-off, but what can I do? But yeah, so the first week I walked
You
around.
walked.
Yeah, and I walked like 20 kilometers a day or so yeah, and then I was really tired, and in the end I thought I might as well get a little kick scooter because it's cheaper than a bicycle. And so I found a really cheap second-hand one on the internet, and I got it. But of course, subsequently, people offered their sort of bicycles, and they offered to buy a bicycle for me. I did
Did
tell
you
all of
see actually
them.
on the blog? Did you see that one of the commenters on Norman Lebrecht's blog offered to
Really?
buy you a bike? Yeah.
Yeah, so I got so many offers that I could actually just stop doing this, and I could just open a sort of bicycle shop or something. I could just have a bicycle loan, like a bicycle rental service. But I did reject all of them because I think it's unnecessary. Like you don't have to spend money on a new item. There are many unused bicycles out there,
And
and
this is
I
just a
would.
temporary thing anyway,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
as long as you had to do it, but still temporary. So,
Yeah, and I would rather, reuse and recycle. That's
sure.
the most important thing. So, in the end, a cousin of a friend of mine had a really old bicycle, and I told her, it has to be old. I don't want a new bicycle, and since it's kind of like family, I accepted it. And for the last 2 weeks before I flew to Tokyo, I have been on that bicycle. And
Wow.
that's where they did another article on me and with me, just cycling around. Yeah.
Well, I bet there's one upside to this. I mean, you've been walking and cycling and delivering the food and whatnot. Your stamina must be incredible. I'm sure
Yeah.
you're ready to do the ring.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, it's quite tiring, and I still continue doing it despite everything, despite all this publicity, I guess. I still woke up at 7 in the morning, and I still worked all the way to the evenings. And I mean, on the days where I do have some sort of online teaching over Zoom or something, I would take some time off. But I still did the same thing. I didn't really just make use of any publicity to do much. I mean, we just have to do what we need to do
Yeah, well, that's right. Believe me, we do what we have to
survive.
do. I'll tell you
Yeah.
something. And most people don't know this. Very few know this, in fact. But actually, I had a similar kind of job. I worked at Office Max for a while. This was some years ago. It was more than 10 years ago. But I actually was working at Office Max when I won a Grammy. And so, yeah, and so I won the Grammy, and I didn't quit afterwards either. I kept that job until we moved out of town there. So, yeah, we do what we have to do. No shame in
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so well, we all know this pandemic thing killed all our gigs. Like you, my last engagement was in January 2020.
All
After that,
right.
everything was canned. I was in Russia at the time, and everything just came apart after that. So I've been doing odds and ends, not at Office Max, but we've all have resorted to doing whatever we can. So, but I thought it was fascinating to see this story and to see how philosophically you integrated this into the greater arc of your life. I think most people reacted in a similar way. They were very impressed by the Zen-like way that you accepted this as part of the journey.
Yeah, I guess it's about just finding the mission behind every job because
The
in
mission behind it,
y-
that's a great line,
yeah,
actually. Yes. Hmm.
because I guess jobs has become sort of like careers and they have been put in a hierarchy, where some jobs are more important than some other jobs, like let's say doctors or something. And in the end, it becomes a prestige, but people just need to know that every job has a mission behind it. Like if you're a doctor, you are doing that not for the prestige, you're doing that to save people. If you're a lawyer, you are doing that to sort of fight for people's rights, not to make tons of money per hour. So it's the same thing as conductors. I think the mission is to, change the atmosphere in the room, is to bring people together through music,
Right.
to say make people's life a little better. And but some people do think that, well, not all, I'm not saying all conductors, but sometimes people think that us conductors, we are on that ivory tower, like we are the big maestros. We just wave our hands for like 30 minutes and we get paid more than everyone else in the orchestra. And I guess people, and then some of us just lose sight of what we were meant to do.
Well,
Yeah.
that's right. Well, you're absolutely right. It's interesting. People have a very superficial impression about what conductors are and what they do, and sometimes that impression is reinforced by some of the less pleasant practitioners of our craft. So
Yeah.
that actually brings me to a question. I was wondering. This is something I'll ask all of our guests because everyone has come to it in a different way, but. What is it that made you want to go into conducting? Was it a certain piece of music that you heard, or was it the indomitable desire to control and dominate our colleagues and conquer the world of music and spread your name everywhere? No, I'm kidding. Of course.
I guess it's the joy of collaboration, and subsequently, that's why I love to do opera and ballet. I was trained as a pianist and composer in the UK, and at the Trinity Lubbock. It's a dance, and I guess we have a dance faculty too, so it's a fantastic school. And as a composer, we do write some stuff for dance, and we have a fantastic head of composition, Dominic Murcott. He's a sonic artist, and he always talks about collaboration, and he thinks that music should be connected to people of all walks of life. And every Thursday, we used to have this composer session where we have people from other professions coming in and sharing how music could be integrated into their craft. So we used to have the chef who who sort of make use of really exotic stuff, like he would use like rabbits and I don't know, like pig ears and those sort of stuff. And we had a Paralympian. We had quite a few people, so it sort of of got my interest that music should be very collaborative, and I started to write music for people who are blind and deaf. I my last few compositions in that conservatory were sort of exploring the other senses. So I actually put my audience into a dark room and I blindfolded them, and you just have to feel how things are going. And subsequently, I was a pianist for a rehearsal or for a concert actually. Yep. So I was playing Mozart piano concerto. I think it was number 20 or
Hmm.
21. And at that time, I didn't know much about symphonic music because I grew up as a pianist and I knew a lot of piano works, and the only symphonic works I know are the sort of mainstream ones, Beethoven, the last Mozart symphonies, Brahms, that sort of stuff. So I thought
It's the right stuff to know.
yeah, I should know a little bit more about conducting and just orchestration because at that time we needed a conductor for our composition class, and being the eldest or the most senior in the class because I was 2 years older than the others. I had to do army in Singapore. So they said, he is the most senior person. Let's just let him do it. But I had no idea how to sort of conduct. So during every orchestra rehearsal where I was the pianist, I actually stayed on and I watched my mentor at that time, John Foster, the late John Foster, he passed away. And he rehearsed Mendelssohn Symphony Number 3 and Brahms' Second Symphony. And so I just learned a little bit from him. He said, "Oh, it's just in 3 and in 2 and whatever, just make sure that you get this syncopation and stuff." And after that, during one rehearsal, he was ill and he didn't turn up. And he said, could you just rehearse the piano concerto first from the piano? I said, all right, sure. And at that time, we already had quite a few rehearsals, so I just shifted my piano to the orchestra and I just played and I just waved my hands a little and things were fine. And then he continued to call me and then he said, I'm not going to be here for Mendelssohn. Could you just rehearse Mendelssohn? And I'm like, oh God, how do I do that? He said, it's all in the notes. There are post-its in the notes. You just have to do it in 3. The first movement's in 3,
Ah,
blah, blah. I'm like, okay. So I just stared at the orchestra and said, guys, we have been doing this for the last, 4 or 5 days. We can sort of get through it. And then they're like, yeah, fine. So I just did that. And after the break, he actually told me, I'll only come for the last 2 movements of Brahms. Could you do Brahms? And at that time, I didn't know how to do Brahms because there's the second symphony of Brahms. There's this tempo change in the middle.
hey, there are
But yeah,
guys 85 years old have been conducting for years that don't know how to do Brahms, so you shouldn't feel guilty. So it's
yeah. So I just took up the stick and I turned to my concert master at that time. I remember, her name was Jacqueline, and I said, Jacqueline, I don't know how to do this, and then she says, we have
okay. I
been
have to say
doing
here,
this.
I
Yeah,
have to say
just
that
wave your arms. We'll save you. Yeah.
words you never want to hear a conductor say. I don't really know how to do this. In fact, those are words you will never hear a conductor say.
So yeah, and basically that was my first experience. That was about
So that is
I
a trial by fire.
Yeah, yeah, it was less than 10 years ago. So in fact, I started conducting really late, much later than many of my peers. I'm sure many of you might know some of the more famous Singaporean conductors, Darrell Ang, who won Besançon, and Ka Chun Wong, who won the previous edition of the Mahler competition. So they have been conducting since they were 16 or 15, but I started when I was 23, so it was much later in the game.
I think that's
Uh,
better, though. Personally, I think it's better for conductors to start later after they've had a significant amount of instrumental training.
all right,
Really
thanks.
learning how to play an instrument and learning repertoire from the other side. I think that makes a huge difference in the output of a conductor later in life.
Yeah. So I started to like this collaboration and I like to work on things. And then my mentor said, you should just leave school right now and go to Europe to study. And so I made that insane decision to quit school in my second year, and subsequently I found myself in Russia, and I studied there for the entire course, 5 years. And in between, I was working with Maestro Tortilier in Iceland and the BBC Philharmonic, and I got a lot of opportunities to do ballet. Strangely, why ballet? I guess it was because it's something very different from, say, music. We are actually working with a different art form, dancing, and I
Well, it's
really
a more
like
a
that.
blending of two disparate art forms. They both have a central rhythm, but the rhythm is expressed in a very different way.
Yep, and I really hate it when people say, ballet conductors are just boom, bop, bop, bum, bop,
Oh
bop,
no no no
and it's
no!
it's
It's-
it's it's not true. Ballet, it's like a language. It's a different language, and it's even more difficult because there is no standard notation for it, and you have to memorize the whole
you have to
choreography.
learn the choreography. That's
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
I
It,
mean, good ballet conductors have to memorize
well, yes, there
the
is that caveat. A good
yeah.
ballet conductor. So essentially, you're saying that actually ballet conducting is a separate and very special skill.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's very, very different. I mean, you could easily just conduct Swan Lake with very minimal skill, of course, but to be a good ballet conductor, that's a different thing. My mentor Gabriel at the main Mariinsky Ballet is a fantastic American ballet conductor. And he also thinks that many people just sort of label us as ballet conductors and that's it. But there's so much skill in it because with singers, most of them sort of sing about the same tempo and in the same style. But with ballet dancers, it's very different from one house to the other, and
Or
from
even
one
from one night to it to another.
yeah, and from one physique to the other. Someone taller might take a longer time to do the jumps. Someone shorter might be faster, and it's very, very tricky. It's not just about the music.
Now you've
You
hit on
have
something here. That's right.
yeah.
Let's go into that just a little bit more because people who may not actually who don't conduct may not quite understand the stress and the skill it takes to do it. So let's just take an example for a minute. Let's say I've done a lot of ballet too. So say the big pas de deux in the second act of Nutcracker, where near the end at the coda where he lifts her up. And then the music, the music actually should meet them at the top with this big cymbal crash and everything like that. But
Yeah.
before that, there's all these runs in the orchestra. There are all the violins going like this, and you have to sort of all of a sudden kind of slow them down, even though the energy in the writing is going forward and forward. It depends upon how slowly or how quickly they've done the steps before that, so that you can time arriving in this one place with the dancers at the peak moment. Isn't that what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah, definitely. And you not just have to be technically precise, you have to understand the physics behind it and just time it very well. And it's a very tricky thing. And it's also due to the fact that the orchestra has no idea what's going on stage because
Right.
with say singers they could easily just just listen to what they're singing. In fact, sometimes opera orchestras they don't need conductors because
They
they
know it.
can just listen to what's on stage. But for ballet conducting, it's very difficult. They can't just turn back and just watch them play.
Right.
And
And the
the
players are usually muttering under their breath. Why are we slowing down here? Why are we speeding up?
yeah,
Oh man, can we just play
yeah.
it straight? No, you can't.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting thing, and I went into that first, mostly because I also did not have the confidence of being a sort of doing more Russian German stuff because I remember the head of conducting in Russia, he told me that, you're good, but you'll probably not be able to do any operas because you're Asian and someone would choose a Italian conductor or a German conductor no matter how good you are because you are Asian. And I'm not saying he's being racist because I guess the Russian conductors are just a little bit old-fashioned because I am sure you have heard of stories of some Russian a maestro saying that there should be only male conductors and so,
Sure.
which is it's just very old-fashioned thinking. Um, so I don't really blame them, but that really hit me, and I guess that's why I also chose to do ballet conducting. I'm a very objective and pragmatic person. Yeah, I of course I did some opera, just a couple. As a student, we were lucky enough to do one or two opera productions during our course of study.
That's good.
I did Figaro and I think Così fan tutte, and but at that time I thought I would not become like an opera conductor, and but I was lucky enough to be selected in Tokyo to work with Maestro Muti for 3 years, and after that I found a love for opera again because in Russia, it's done very, very differently. And while working with Maestro Muti, he talks about all this intimate things in the Italian repertoire, and it's fantastic. And since then, I've been shifting towards opera a lot more. More theaters have been asking me to come down because of my expertise in the Italian repertoire, Verdi, Mozart, and yeah, I've done Aida, I think at least, I don't know, 12 times in the last 4 years or so.
Wow. That's
I've done Rigoletto,
fantastic.
Aida, Bal Masquerade, and a lot of mostly Verdi stuff, Mozart stuff. So it's
Well,
been a
you mastered the
crazy
art of starting and
ride.
stopping.
Yeah, it's been a crazy, crazy ride.
Let
But
me ask you
yeah,
something about ballet. Ballet is such a unique genre unto itself. Are you worried about being typecast? I know in America, and I think other places too, ballet conductors are considered to be, so we say, over there. Okay, they conduct ballet. They don't conduct orchestral. And and when actors are told something when they're starting out, they say, because they don't want to get typecast, they say, don't do porn unless you want to do more porn, because that's all anyone's going to offer you. And so you can extrapolate that to ballet. Don't do ballet unless you want to do more ballet, because this is what I've learned, at least in my observations, anecdotally in America. Do you feel like that's true over there?
um, in Russia, not really. I'm not sure about Asia. But of course, I'm trying not to be labeled as a ballet conductor or opera conductor or anything, or even a conductor. I think we should be just musicians. I mean, it's a profession. I don't see myself exclusively as an opera conductor or ballet conductor. I know Classic FM, put this huge headline, ballet conductor. I guess because it looks better with like ballet conductor on a bike, B&B. So probably because of that. Um, but
Don't you hate that huge asterisk, ballet conductor?
yeah, yeah. So for you guys who are outside, who are watching, I'm not just a ballet conductor. In fact, I've been doing a lot more opera these days, or just a good combination of both. I just love to do a little bit more things. But I think this unhealthy label has to go. It's also very old-fashioned, and there are some ballet conductors who are fantastic these days, and I mean, being in ballet for too long could cause a little harm, I guess, to our techniques because try doing Nutcracker or Swan Lake for like 100 times each year. It gets boring and it gets very stagnant. Your technique gets very simple, and you don't do a lot of tricky things. And I I guess it's because of how society labels the sort of ballet conductors that we ballet conductors become sort of frowned upon. So if we remove these labels and we just say, yeah, we are a conductor and we just do ballet, and it's fine. I mean, it's the same thing that there's this Paralympian who talked to me once, and then he says, it's the labels that society put on people that causes barriers, that creates barriers. Like, who says people who are deaf can't enjoy music? Who says people who are blind can't enjoy ballet? It's because there's a label that you are deaf and blind, so you can't enjoy ballet, and that's why people assume things. Like he once said, um, someone once asked him that, you are a Paralympian, probably you should use the lift, you shouldn't use the stairs. And then he says, yeah, but why do you have to put this label on me? Like, I could use the stairs if I want to. It's just that I choose not to because it's a bit more convenient to use the lift. So I guess in our profession, maybe there have been this huge distinction between opera conductors, ballet conductors, choral conductors, band conductors, and all this stuff, amateur conductors. I mean, a conductor is a conductor. We have different skills, but nobody is perfect, and I'm pretty sure we have skills that are suitable or more suitable for some things. I mean, I have seen choral conductors who do great things with symphony orchestras. I have seen symphonic conductors doing great things with choirs. I've seen band conductors doing great things with opera. So I think, yes, we do have a specialization or something that we love more, but then again, we should be sharing skills. We should be working with each other. We should be sort of collaborating instead of you are ballet. I'll just talk to you about the bum 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 bum, and I'll not talk to you about opera. Yeah.
Wow, well, that's a really humanitarian way to look at it all. It's really quite remarkable, and I think it comes through in the music making that I've heard of yours. So, well, by this time, if we were really in a bar together, we'd be on our second drink and probably talking about that third stand violin player, the second violins up there, or the first oboe, because you always talk about the principal oboe. But nonetheless, we're going to show another video of you just a little bit later, as we wind down here. But we're every conductor here is in the same boat. We're in the middle, or hopefully near the end of this pandemic. Is there anything looking up for the next season coming up?
Well, I'm lucky enough to be in Tokyo right now, working with Maestro Muti. We are working on Macbeth, and it's fantastic. He has been talking about how many orchestras in the world are not playing Verdi or Italian repertoire the way it should be performed. I mean,
Wow.
he is the world's foremost specialist on Verdi and a lot of Italian
Oh,
repertoire.
I'd kill to hear him talk
So
about that. Yeah.
so it's fantastic the way he rehearsed. I have never seen anyone rehearse like that before, and it's fantastic. He even rehearsed the chorus, and it's brilliant. So it's a fantastic program that it's not just one of those public master classes where with the Berlin Philharmonic or Concertgebouw, and people just come for like 1-2 hours, and you work on a certain piece or some movements. But here we do get quite a lot of podium time, or a lot of time to work with him. In fact, like hours each day. We actually conduct for hours each day. And he really talked to us, and he tells us, this part has to be like that, this part has to be like that. And he even teaches how to rehearse the choir. He teaches how to rehearse with the soloists. So it's a fantastic program. I'm very lucky to be here, and I'm conducting a concert version of Macbeth at the end of the
Fabulous.
entire. So it's he doesn't exactly call it like a master class. He sort of calls it like a assistantship, because he actually doesn't conduct. We actually conduct for him. 2, 3 of us conduct for him, and he just runs through each day, and he'll just say, this part, how would you rehearse, and then how would he rehearse, and he just takes the final general rehearsal, and that's it. So we are his assistants, basically.
Mm.
um and he always calls it, oh, it's like a little competition and everything. But I think it's just a very good academy. And I'm really very lucky to be here. Hopefully I could work with him a bit more. I'm planning to go to Italy to work with him with AIDA. That's in June because I conduct a lot of AIDA, like I said, so I have to really know how to do that well. But between April and June, I might be conducting a couple of operas in Russia, probably Traviata and Carmen. And after that, there is no plans. I mean, there have been some concerts that have been postponed from last year to this fall. I mean, uh, this summer, but nothing's confirmed because of COVID. So we just have to see how things go.
Well, I'll want to hear all about what happens with AIDA and anything that's happening with you going on in the future. This has been fantastic speaking to you. Before we go for any further, I think let's show this next video. We have I think this is is this some Tchaikovsky? I think we have coming up here. Is that right? Let's roll the video, please. Terrific. Yeah, very nice. Yeah,
Thanks.
like you're channeling Stokowski there. Very, very nice. Wow. Well, I hope I'll get to see and hear you do some opera at some point. With
Yeah.
your unique attitude towards approaching music and life, really, I think that the musical experience is bound to be a memorable one. Really, it's almost a shame that something that has turned out to be as tragic and even preventable as this pandemic has caused so much discomfort and disruption to all of our lives on that bend. But it's so interesting how so many good things can come out of it because obviously I would not have heard of you, at least not yet, if it hadn't been for all this in the back end. I know that many of us people who are watching would say the same thing. So let's hear for that. And listen, I want to thank you so much for joining us here in Conductors and
Right.
Bars, and I'm really hoping that next time we meet, this actually will be in a bar somewhere close to it. At least we'll be in the same room.
Yes,
And
definitely. I would love to go back to the States again. I was there years ago in Atlanta. I was conducting in I think at or was it Georgia?
yeah,
I can't
Atlanta
remember.
is yeah,
Yeah,
in
yeah. I
Georgia.
was there like years ago for a little masterclass. I can't even remember where it was, but it was fantastic, and I had family in Boston, so I love it, you know.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Boston
Fan,
was home for me for a long time. Yeah. Well,
right.
we'll have to explore that next time. I didn't realize that,
Yeah.
but so wow, that is fabulous.
Fantastic orchestras there, definitely. I was also in Baltimore, and I watched the symphony there, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, another great
The
orchestra.
Yeah, the American orchestras, they have a different sound, but very, very good. I guess
They're quick
the
too.
I can say that the best brasses are in America. Definitely, the best brasses are always in America,
I
Chicago.
understand. Say anything more might be
Yeah,
impolitic, but yes, we
yeah,
understand.
but of course
Well,
you can't tell them because they would just
they'll play louder.
they'll play louder and louder, like, okay, we are the best.
That's
Let's
right.
just show them why we are the best.
Right, and just telling them to talk to the hand almost never works.
Yeah.
True. Well, listen, thanks so much for joining us here on Conductors and Bars. It's been really fascinating speaking to you. We're going to stay
All
in
right.
touch. I wish
Yep,
you the best,
definitely.
and email me, send me videos and whatnot. Let me know what you're up to, and we'll stay in touch. We'll have you back for sure.
All right, great. Okay.
All right,
Yeah,
thanks a
thanks so
lot.
much. Yeah, cheers.
We'll see you next time. And to
Yeah.
everybody watching and listening, join us again
All right.
for Conductors and Bars. We'll look forward to seeing you there. Bye bye.